Hi, this is Annie with Wildflower and Stitch. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be making this very cute 3D Oregon Grape granny square. This granny square is part of my State Flower granny square collection, and the Oregon Grape is the state flower of Oregon. A couple of things before we get started. First of all, this is an easy intermediate level tutorial. While I'll be showing you step by step how to make the granny square, I will not go into a lot of detail for very basic crochet stitches and techniques. So if you're very new to crochet, I would recommend you start with one of my beginner-friendly tutorials before moving on to this one. A second thing to mention is that this is my original design. You are more than welcome to use the squares that you make with this tutorial in any of your crochet projects. I do ask that you give me credit for the design, and I will include super simple guidelines in the description of this video on how you can do that. To make this granny square, you are going to need two different colors of yarn if you want to make your square in two colors like I've done here. The yarn that I'm using today is this Hobie Rainbow 8/8 cotton yarn. And the yardage of this yarn is 50 grams or 1.75 ounces equals to 75 meters or 82 yards. And it says here that it is a number 3 lightweight yarn. And with this yarn, I am using a crochet hook size 4.5 millimeters. And with this hook, this yarn, and my tension, this square ends up being about 4 by 4 inches. Then you're also going to need a yarn needle or a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends and a pair of scissors. We are going to start the granny square from the middle and we work in rounds. So we start here, we work 2 layers of 3D petals for the flower. And after the flower, we crochet the square around it. So go ahead now and grab whatever color you want to use for the flower. I'm using this bright yellow. And I will start by making a slip knot. And I put it on my hook. And then I'll chain 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I bring this together into a ring by slip stitching here into this first stitch. If you prefer starting your granny squares with the magic circle or any other way, you can of course do it your way. There we go. I made a ring. And now for this first round, which is this very center of the flower, I am going to need 12 single crochet stitches. So I'm here where I just slip stitch to form this ring. And I'm going to start by chaining 1 stitch. And this chain 1 here is not going to count as anything. So I still need 12 single crochets around this ring. So I insert my hook in the very middle of the ring. That was actually not the middle. Gotta be careful here because we'll see that very obvious opening there. The middle is right here underneath it. There we go. I grab my yarn and I bring it through. I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2. That's my first actual single crochet. So I need 12 in total and I have 1 here, so 11 more. All right, let's double check that I have 11 stitches here. For single crochets, I find it easier to count them here on the outside. So this is the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is the 12th stitch right here. The first one here on the outside, these 2 loops that are over this single crochet here. So I have 12 stitches. And I'm going to go ahead and close this round with a slip stitch into this 12th stitch. And that is the first round of my square. We are going to start the second round of our square. And the second round is going to be this first layer of petals. We're going to make 6 3D petals. And I'm going to start the second round right from this spot. So where I slip stitch to close the round there, this is where I start. And I'm going to start by chaining 2. Chain 2 stitches. After the chain 2, I'm going to work a double crochet cluster in the next stitch. And by a double crochet cluster, I don't mean multiple double crochets together, but rather a cluster stitch where we start the double crochets and we don't quite finish them. We finish them all at once to form the cluster. And I'm going to show you here what I mean by that. So I have my chain 2 here. I'm going to start as if I'm making a double crochet. So yarn over once. I insert in the next stitch here. Go under both of those loops. Grab that yarn, pull it through. I have 3 loops on my hook. And I go yarn over, pull through 2, and I stop here. So if I was making an actual double crochet, I would go yarn over again and pull through these 2. But I don't quite want to finish that double crochet yet. I'll make another one with these 2 loops still on my hook. So yarn over, insert in the same stitch. Pull the yarn through. I have 4 loops on my hook. And I go yarn over and pull through 2 and stop. And let's see what I have here so far. I have the chain 2 here. I have these 2 partial double crochets and I have 3 loops on my hook. And at this point, I'll go yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is the double crochet cluster completed. After that, I chain 2 again and I slip stitch into the next stitch here on the outside. So not where I have that double crochet cluster, but rather here in the next stitch. Slip stitch. And that is my first petal. And I start my second petal right from this spot. I chain 2. I make a double crochet cluster in the next stitch. So yarn over, insert in the next stitch. Grab that yarn, bring it through. 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Another partial double crochet for this cluster. So yarn over, insert in the same stitch where I have the previous one. Bring that yarn through. 4 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Let's see, my yarn split there a little bit, so I'm gonna do that one again. Actually going to do both of those again. So first one, and a second one. So I have 2 partial double crochets here and 3 loops on my hook, and I go yarn over and pull through 3. Chain 2 and slip stitch into the next stitch. And that is my second petal. And I start my third petal right from this spot. So chain 2, I'll create a double crochet cluster in the next one, just like with the first 2. And I'll chain 2 and then slip stitch into the next stitch again. So go ahead and work 4 more petals exactly like we made the first 2. If you need to see how we made them, feel free to rewind and go back here and watch that part again. But 6 petals in total. And once you are ready to secure the last chain 2 of the last petal, restart the video and we'll do that part together here. All right, I have worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals, and now I'm about to close this or to secure the 6th one. So the last thing I've done here is to chain those last 2 stitches after the double crochet cluster. And I'm just gonna go ahead and secure this right where I started that first petal. So where I have that initial chain 2, I'm just gonna secure this in the same spot. And that's it. That concludes my second round. And now for the third round, before we can make these second layer of petals, I'm going to need something behind my first layer of petals to work the second layer into. And for that purpose, well, we can't really see it in this finalized square, but for that purpose, what I have here are chain stitches behind these petals that I use later to create this second layer of petals. So I am going to start right here, right in the spot where I closed that previous round. And I'm just gonna get in between these 2 petals, and I'm going to chain 2 stitches right from here. 1 and 2. And now I'm going to be working behind my work. So this chain 2 goes over the first petal on the back side, and I secure it here right between these 2 petals, between the first and the second petal. And personally, I like to pick up 2 loops here where I secure this. So 1 loop from each petal. The 2 loops that are the closest to each other, I pick up both of those on the back side still, okay? And then I'll just pull this yarn through those 2 loops and pull it through the loop on my hook. And now I have created a loop of chain stitches behind that first petal. I'm going to do the same thing for each petal. So right here where I secured that previous one, I chain 2, and again I'll go ahead and secure it between these 2 petals, picking up those 2 loops. Pull the yarn through and pull it through the loop on my hook, and that creates my second loop of chain stitches. So this is how I work all of the loops. Feel free to go ahead and work 4 more so that you have 1 loop of chain 2 behind each petal. And once you're ready to secure the last one, then meet me back here. All right, this is my last loop, and same thing here. I'm just going to go ahead and find 2 loops. It's a little bit trickier here because this is where the first loop starts. and the loops are not exactly right next to each other, but I do try to find 2 loops here where I can slip stitch into to secure this last, they're very tight, this last loop. Let's see. There we go. So I picked up 2 loops, one from this last petal, kind of the last loop there, and then the second one is right where this first loop of chain stitches starts. Probably not the only place you can slip stitch back there, so if you find a spot that you prefer, as always, feel free to do it your way. This is just the way I do it. All right. And after that, I'll slip stitch to the start of this first loop of 2 chain stitches. And that concludes that round. And now for the next round, we are going to be working this second layer of 3D petals. And we're going to be working 1 petal in each loop, so 6 petals total. And these petals are the exact same way as the first layer, except that it's kind of the next size up. Because instead of chaining 2, we are chaining 3 in the beginning. And then we are creating a treble crochet cluster instead of a double crochet cluster. And then we chain 3 again and slip stitch back. So same idea as the first layer of petals, but slightly larger petals for this round. And I'm going to start the first petal right here, where I slip stitch to the beginning of that loop, that first loop. So to start the petal, I chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then I work a treble crochet cluster into the same loop. So I start as if I'm making a treble crochet. Yarn over twice, insert into the space, bring the yarn through. I have 4 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over twice again, insert in the same space, bring the yarn through. I have 5 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. And at this point I have 3 loops on my hook, and I go yarn over, pull through 3. And after that I chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3, and I slip stitch into the same space. And that's my first petal. Then I start my next petal by first slip stitching into the next loop. I chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I work a treble crochet cluster. So yarn over twice, insert into space, bring the yarn through, 4 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. Another one, yarn over twice, insert in the loop, pull the yarn through, 5 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and stop. I have 3 loops on my hook, and I go yarn over and pull through all 3. And then I chain 3 and slip stitch back into the space. And that's my second petal. I slip stitch to the start of the third loop, and I start my third petal here by chaining 3. And that is how I work all 6 petals. So I have 2 here, I need 4 more. So I'm going to let you go ahead and work all around yours. If you need to see again how we made the petals, feel free to go back here and watch this part again. Work 4 more petals and then meet me back here. All right, I am ready to close this round. So the last thing I've done here is to chain these last 3 stitches for the last petal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and slip stitch right here in the same space where I have that petal. And that concludes that second layer of petals. And next we're gonna work the square around the flower. But before we can do that, again, we need something behind these petals to work the next round into. And for that purpose, I'm going to be making loops of chain stitches again. And I'll make them with this yellow color. Afterwards, I'll cover it up with a background color so you can't see the loops anymore. But basically the same idea as with the previous loops. So I'm right here where I closed that previous round. And this time I'm going to chain 4 for the loop. So chain 4 and the same thing as before. So I slip stitch here by picking up 2 loops, 1 from each one of those petals. And I just secure that loop right there. So now I have a loop of 4 chain stitches behind that first petal. And I start the next one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one goes over the second one. And I secure it again between these 2 petals here. By picking up those 2 loops. And there's the second loop. So we've made 2 loops here. Go ahead and make 4 more, and once you're ready to secure the last one, then meet me back here. All right, let's secure this last loop. So again, the same thing as before. I find 2 loops from here. Here I'm gonna go ahead and pick up this one, kind of where the first loop starts. And then I'll go back here and pick up a loop from the first petal. And just pull my yarn through. And pull it through the loop on my hook. And then I also like to go to the beginning of that first loop here. And slip stitch there. To make it a little sturdier here, this connection. And then I chain 1, and I can break my yarn here. I'm not going to need the yellow yarn anymore. Here we go. There's my Oregon Grape flower, and next we're gonna work the square around it. All right. We are ready to start working on the background. So go ahead and grab your background color. And we are going to attach our yarn. I'm going to attach my yarn by making a slip knot. And then I put it on my hook. And I'll attach it to the beginning of one of these loops, now behind these petals. Doesn't really matter which one. I'm using my weaving as you go method, so I'm going to attach it here where I have the previous yarn end. I'm not going to go into detail here on that method, but I'll link to a separate tutorial in the description if you want to take a look. All right, so I just insert my hook into that space Then grab the yarn, bring it through, and pull it through the loop on my hook. And then I make sure that this is in the very beginning of the loop. Turn my work around and pull that yarn in tight to make sure it doesn't escape. And now I'm going to chain one here just to secure that. Now for this first round in this background color, I'm actually not going to be making the square quite yet. Instead, what I'm doing here is I'm creating 6 single crochet stitches into each one of those loops of the previous round, which is going to completely cover up these loops. So that's all I'm going to be doing this round. And I chained one here to kind of secure it there and to bring me up to the right height. But I'm not going to count that chain one as anything. So I need 6 single crochets for this loop. So for single crochet, just insert into the space, grab the yarn, bring it through, yarn over and pull through 2. So I'm just basically creating this single crochets around this loop of chain stitches. I need 6 here. All right, I think I have 6, but let's double check. So the first one is this one here on the outside edge, those 2 loops that are sitting right on top of this single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I have 6 single crochets here. And after the 6 single crochets in that loop, I'll just go straight into this next loop. And I create a single crochet there. So there's nothing I need to do between the 2 loops. So after I'm done with single crochets in one loop, I'll just go straight into the next one and make 6 single crochets into that one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let you work around your work. So create 6 single crochets into each one of those loops. And once you have worked all around, then meet me back here and we're going to close the round together. All right, I have worked all around. As we can see, I covered up those loops. And I am ready to join this round after the last 6 single crochets into that last loop. And I'm going to close it with the slip stitch here into that very first single crochet. Just a slip stitch there. And then to start my next round, I'm going to make one more slip stitch. So just go under the next 2 loops and slip stitch right there. And that's where I want to start my next round. And the purpose I made that extra slip stitch there is that I can position this flower so that I have these 2 petals here on that side, these 2 on this side, and then I have a petal here on either side. And the flower is kind of nice and centered on the square. So now we're going to start working on the square around the flower. But before I start, I do want to double check that when I made those slip stitches there, I didn't accidentally get rid of a stitch or anything like that. So I'm going to double check that I have 6 single crochets in this loop. It's just going to make my life much easier if I notice it now and not later. So to count my stitches in this loop, this is the first one. These 2 loops that are sitting right on top of this last stitch here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I have this stitch that I just slip stitched into. And I have 1 more here. So I still do have 6 stitches in this loop because this one here is the first stitch for that loop. excuse me. So I have 6 stitches in this loop, which is important because the number of stitches of that previous round actually makes a difference for our next round. So I'm going to start my next round right here. So I closed the round there in the first single crochet and again made 1 more slip stitch after that. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to start by chaining 3 stitches. And this chain 3 is going to count as my first double crochet. And I work 2 more double crochet stitches into that same stitch. So right here into that same stitch, 2 actual double crochets. Here we go. Now I have 3 double crochets in that stitch because that chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. And this here is actually my first corner cluster. I'm going to chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 more double crochets into the next stitch. Here we go. Excuse me. I have created my first corner. And now, after that corner, I'm going to skip 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. I go into the 4th one and I make 3 half double crochet stitches there. So half double crochet is yarn over, insert in the stitch, bring the yarn through, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Half double crochet. I'm making 3 into the same stitch. Here we go. After that cluster of 3 half double crochets, I'll skip 3 again. 1, 2, 3. And in the stitch number 4, I create 3 double crochets. Three double crochets. I chain 2, and then 3 double crochets into the next stitch. And there is my second corner. So if we look here what I have done so far, I have 2 corners and 1 side. And this is how I work all around the square. So I need 2 more corners here, and these 2 corners are going to be exactly the same way as this corner here. So it's 3 double crochets, chain 2 for the corner, and then work 3 double crochets into the next stitch. We don't skip anything here in the middle of the corner. And then I have 3 sides left. And for the sides, after the corner, I'm skipping 3 stitches. I make 3 half double crochets into the 4th stitch, and then I skip 3 stitches again before I start my next corner. So that's how I work all around the square. Now, if you need to see how we make the sides and the corners, feel free to go back here, see how we made this side. Make the rest of the sides the same way. And the corner here, this is, as I said, exactly the same as these 2 here. So feel free to rewind, watch that part again, work all around your square, and then meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around, and as we can see, I have a square now instead of a circle. And I'm just gonna go ahead and close this round right here to the top of that chain 3 that I chained in the beginning. So close my round there. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a couple more slip stitches here to slip stitch my way to the next corner. And into the corner space. And I start my next round right here. And now actually these last 2 rounds are going to be super easy because we're just working granny stitches. So clusters of 3 double crochet like we made here in the corners. So we work those into all of these spaces between the previous rounds clusters. And in the corners we make 2 granny stitches separated by a chain 2. So I'm gonna start right here in this first corner. And I'm going to chain 3, which counts as my first double crochet for the beginning of the round. And then I work 2 more double crochets. So that's my first cluster. I chain 2 and then 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. By the way, when I talk about a cluster of double crochets here, I'm referring to these granny stitches, so 3 completed double crochets together, and not the double crochet or treble crochet cluster we made for the petals. It's confusing because the term is so close, but here the cluster of 3 double crochets is just a group of 3 double crochets together. All right, so here's my first corner. I go into this first space between the previous rounds clusters and I make 3 double crochets here. There it is. I go into this next space and same thing. It's 3 double crochets. By the way, I picked this purple background color because the Oregon grapes are used to make jelly, and I thought this color was the closest one I had to a grape jelly. So that's the story of this background color. All right, so here is my double crochet or cluster of 3 double crochets in that space. And after that, I get to my corner and I just go straight into the corner space, 3 double crochets. After the 3 double crochets, chain 2 for the corner, and then 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. And that's it. That's how we work all around the square. So go ahead and now complete this round working those clusters of 3 double crochet into all of those spaces, and in the corners we do 2 clusters separated by a chain 2. So work all around and then meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around, and again I'm ready to close my round into the top of that chain 3 there where I started this round. So close it with the slip stitch, and then one more time I slip stitch my way to the next corner. So just going into these stitches on my way there. And into the corner space, slip stitch there. And I'm going to start my last round. I start by chaining 3, which is going to count as my first double crochet. I work 2 more double crochets here. And that's my first corner cluster. I chain 2 for the corner, and then 3 more double crochets into this corner space. And that's my first corner for this round. And then I'll just keep going exactly the same way as the previous round. So I'll just work 3 double crochets into all of these spaces between the previous round's clusters. Here's the first one, and I'm gonna keep going all around the square. So exactly the same thing as the previous round. Clusters of 3 double crochet into the spaces on the sides, and then in the corner space 2 clusters separated by a chain 2. So feel free to go ahead, work all around, and when you're ready to join this final round, meet me back here. All right, I am ready to close my final round. So same as before, I'll just slip stitch here to the top of that initial chain 3. The slip stitch there. Then I'll chain 1, break my yarn, and fasten off. And here's my Oregon Grape granny square. Now the only things that I have left here is, first of all, weaving in the rest of those ends. I did take care of the ones in the middle. It's just a little bit left of that purple one. I'll just probably weave that in, but it's already been woven in the 2 different directions. But yeah, just take care of the rest of those ends and then block the square. But otherwise, I'm all done. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you are posting pictures on Instagram of your Oregon Grape granny square, I would love to see those pictures. So please tag my account. My account on Instagram is @wildflower_and_stitch. Thanks again so much for watching. If you like this tutorial, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave me a comment, and share this with a crochet friend. I appreciate all of those things so much because they really do help me and allow me to keep publishing these videos for free. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.